Hello, and welcome to this comprehensive guide on understanding female orgasms. My name is Vanessa, and I've spent over 15 years working with women from all walks of life, helping them achieve their first orgasms and teaching them how to experience more pleasure in their daily lives. In this video, I'm going to tackle some of the most important questions and common misconceptions surrounding female orgasms. From what an orgasm really is, to why women don't always experience them as expected, and how you can achieve the most pleasure from your own body, we're covering it all. I know this topic can feel overwhelming for many, and I completely understand. As women, we've been conditioned to think there's something wrong with us if we don't orgasm quickly or easily. I, too, struggled for years to experience orgasm. In fact, it took me over 10 years to have my first orgasm, so I know just how frustrating and confusing the process can be. But here's the truth. Female orgasm is not a one-size-fits-all experience, and it's absolutely normal if it doesn't happen the way you might expect. What is an orgasm? Let's start by addressing the big question: what is an orgasm? It seems like an easy thing to define, but there's actually no universally agreed-upon definition for an orgasm. Many people describe it as the peak of pleasure during sexual activity, but it's so much more than just a single peak. It's an experience that can feel different every time, and sometimes it's even hard to recognize. The truth is, orgasms can last anywhere from 2 to 20 seconds, and they can feel like waves of pleasure or even a single burst. For some women, an orgasm might bring relief or release, but for others, it might feel like a brief moment of pleasure that passes in an instant. One of the most fascinating things I've learned from talking with thousands of women is that orgasms really are like snowflakes. No two are the same. Some women experience massive, explosive pleasure, while others only feel tiny little tremors. Some orgasms seem to spread through the body, while others are centered around the genitals. Sometimes an orgasm feels like the end of sexual activity, while other times it leaves women wanting more. The key takeaway here is that there is no right or wrong way to experience orgasm. It's all about what works for you. Orgasm myths and realities. We live in a world where the media and movies often portray orgasms as these explosive, earth-shattering events that women experience after just a few minutes of sexual activity. We've all seen those scenes where a woman reaches climax after a few thrusts or seconds of touch. But let's get real here. That's just not how it works for most women. The truth is, these portrayals are setting women up for failure. Women are often told that they should be able to orgasm from penetration alone, and that it should happen instantly or without much effort. But in reality, only about 20% of women actually orgasm from penetration alone. Instead, female orgasm largely depends on clitoral stimulation. Yes, you heard that right. The clitoris is the key to unlocking most women's orgasms. And here's where things get a bit shocking. The clitoris is actually much larger than most people think, and it's not just the small nub of skin we see on the outside. The clitoris has 2 to 3 times the number of nerve endings compared to the penis, and it extends internally into the body. So, when you hear women talk about orgasming from penetration, it's actually the internal parts of the clitoris being stimulated, not the vagina itself. The clitoris, more than just a nub. Let's take a moment to understand the clitoris better. Most people assume it's just the small visible part that sits at the top of the vulva, but there's much more to it than that. The clitoris is shaped like a wishbone, and its 2 internal legs, called crura, extend up into the body, surrounding the vagina. When a woman has an orgasm during penetration, it's typically because the internal parts of the clitoris are being stimulated. The bottom line here is, orgasm doesn't come from the vagina alone. It's all about the clitoris. I know it might feel a bit disappointing to learn that penetration alone isn't the answer for most women, especially when you've been conditioned to believe that sex should be all about penetration. But trust me, once you start focusing on clitoral stimulation, both internal and external, you'll unlock a whole new level of pleasure. And that's why it's so important to approach orgasm with an open mind. Forget the pressure to orgasm through penetration alone, and instead focus on what feels good for your body, because everyone is different. Welcome back. In the first part of this guide, we covered the basics of female orgasm, debunking common myths and explaining how crucial the clitoris is in the process. Now, we're going to dive deeper into the different types of orgasms, how long it typically takes to reach one, and how you can support your body in its natural response to pleasure. Understanding these aspects will give you the tools you need to experience orgasm in a more fulfilling and satisfying way. The different types of female orgasm. Now, if you've ever looked up types of female orgasm, you've probably encountered a list that includes things like clitoral orgasms, vaginal orgasms, G-spot orgasms, cervical orgasms, blended orgasms, and even anal orgasms. The list goes on, and it can be overwhelming. But here's the thing, the vast majority of these types of orgasms ultimately come down to one thing: clitoral stimulation. Yes, even the so-called vaginal orgasms are typically caused by the stimulation of the internal parts of the clitoris. Let's break it down. Clitoral orgasm. This is the most common type of orgasm, and it happens when the external or internal parts of the clitoris are stimulated. For many women, this is the most straightforward and reliable way to reach orgasm. Vaginal orgasm. Contrary to popular belief, vaginal orgasms are rare, and they don't occur from penetration alone. Instead, they are usually caused by the internal parts of the clitoris, the crura, being stimulated during penetration. It's the same clitoral stimulation, just in a different spot. G-spot orgasm. The G-spot is a highly sensitive area located inside the vagina, on the front wall. When stimulated, it can lead to intense pleasure. However, even this orgasm is often considered a type of clitoral orgasm because the G-spot is believed to be connected to the internal clitoral legs. Cervical orgasm. Some women experience pleasure from the cervix during deep penetration. This orgasm is also linked to the internal parts of the clitoris and is often described as a more diffuse, full-body experience. Blended orgasm. This is the combination of both clitoral and vaginal G-spot stimulation. Blended orgasms are often described as particularly powerful and intense, as they involve multiple pleasure zones at once. Anal orgasm. While less common, some women can achieve orgasm through anal stimulation, which again may be linked to the stimulation of the clitoris due to the proximity of the anal and vaginal regions. The key takeaway here is that all these so-called different types of orgasms are still essentially related to clitoral stimulation in one form or another. So, if you're focused on achieving orgasm, focusing on the clitoris is your best bet, whether it's external or internal stimulation. How long does it take to reach orgasm? One of the most common frustrations women experience is not being able to orgasm as quickly as they're supposed to. We've all heard the myths that women should orgasm in a few minutes, but the truth is, for most women, it takes time. On average, it takes around 20 minutes of focused stimulation to reach orgasm. That's the rough average, but there are always exceptions. Some women may orgasm in 30 seconds, while others may need up to 30 minutes or more. This is an important point because many women feel pressure to orgasm quickly and feel frustrated when it doesn't happen right away. The reality is that orgasms don't follow a strict timeline, and your body needs the time it needs. So, instead of stressing about the clock or comparing yourself to unrealistic portrayals in movies, focus on enjoying the process and exploring what feels good. Now, let's be real. This doesn't mean that orgasm should take forever every time. Once you get in tune with your body, you can learn to orgasm faster, and many women find that with practice, they can reach orgasm in a matter of minutes rather than hours. What does an orgasm feel like? Another question I hear often is, what does an orgasm feel like? And the honest answer is, It feels different for every woman, every time. Some orgasms feel like an explosion of pleasure, while others feel like a small, quiet release. Some may feel focused around the genitals, while others can spread throughout the entire body. You might even experience an orgasm that doesn't feel like a huge wave of pleasure, but rather a more subtle, deeper sense of satisfaction. Some women experience what's known as the orgasmic plateau, where the pleasure feels like it's building, but never quite reaches that explosive climax. This can be incredibly frustrating, but it's actually a normal part of the process. Just because it doesn't feel like a big climax doesn't mean the orgasm isn't happening. It might just be a more gentle, slower buildup. In terms of physical sensations, many women experience muscular contractions in the vagina and rectum, often accompanied by a strong feeling of release or relief. This can be one of the most reliable signs that an orgasm has occurred, although not all orgasms result in these contractions. Other signs might include an extremely sensitive clitoris, changes in breathing patterns, a racing heart, or a noticeable increase in lubrication. How to know if you've had an orgasm. For many women, the question arises, how do you know if you've had an orgasm? It's not always as obvious as you might think. Some of the physical signs to look for include 1. Muscular contractions. The most reliable sign of orgasm is the involuntary muscle contractions in the vagina and rectum. If you feel a pulsating or rhythmic tightening, it's a good indication that you've had an orgasm. 2. Sensitive clitoris. After orgasm, the clitoris may feel extremely sensitive, and any further stimulation may be unbearable. If you experience this, it's a good sign that you've climaxed. 3. Sex flush. Some women experience a red flush on the chest, neck, or face during orgasm, which can spread rapidly. This is a physical sign that the body is undergoing intense pleasure. 4. Change in breathing. Rapid, shallow breathing or an increase in heart rate often accompanies orgasm, signaling the body's heightened state of arousal. These signs, combined with your own internal experience of pleasure, can help you determine whether you've experienced an orgasm. Embrace your unique experience. As you can see, female orgasm is a highly individual and diverse experience. There's no single right way to orgasm, and that's okay. Understanding that it can take time, practice, and exploration to find what works for your body is key. Orgasm is not a race, and it's definitely not something to be ashamed of. By focusing on clitoral stimulation, exploring different types of touch, and relaxing into the experience, you can create a fulfilling and pleasurable journey toward orgasm. Remember, your body is unique, and what works for one person might not work for another. So, allow yourself the time and space to discover what feels right for you.